Hi, welcome back to my channel. I have another, what I wanted to call Friday Reads video. I'm going to simply call it Friday Reads number 2 very late or something along that line, because for the month of March I kept track of everything that I was reading by week. And the previous video I did these books here, and this video is the week ending March 22nd, and it's these books here. And sorry for the whiteout and the sloppy handwriting, but I wanted you to see how I'm organizing things for this video. Now, for this week ending the 22nd of March, and I do have one more video which will end March 29th, and then hopefully in April, we're already in April, I think today is the 4th, so maybe I can get back on track, but we'll see. In any event, I read 12 books, and I read something, it was 4,054 pages, and this averaged to 579 pages per day. Close to 2 books a day is 1.71 books per day. Now, it was a better week than the previous week, and a better week than the current week, so some weeks are great, some weeks are okay, some weeks are just right. In any event, the first book I reviewed is Death in Kew Gardens by Jennifer Ashley. This was the third book in the Kat Holloway mystery series. I read the first two. The first one is Death Above Stairs, and the second one is Scandal Above Stairs, which are already out. And this book will not be out until June 4th, but because the series was so good, I just had to read it. I couldn't wait. So the review that I'm about to review here is on Goodreads, but it won't be on my blog until June the 4th. And basically, we have already, anyone that's familiar with the series is familiar with Kat Holloway, who is a cook, and she's currently working in an affluent house in Victorian England. What she does meanwhile is she is very successful at investigating crimes. Like in one case she solved a murder, in another case she solved an art theft. Well, in this case here it is another murder. And just before the murder happened, she met this elegant, unusual man named Li Bei Chang, and he's from China. And remember, this is Victorian England, so Chinamen weren't seen often, but she was intrigued by him. Well, coincidentally, the murder victim happened to be an expert in the language and customs of China, and this Mr. Chang, whom she had just met previously, was accused of the crime. She sensed something about his personality and doesn't think he was in any way capable of committing such a crime. So she engages the help of her good friend Daniel McAdam, and Daniel was in the first 2 books, and he is a very good friend and romantic interest of Kat's, but Daniel has a lot of mystery and secrets around him, and they haven't committed to a relationship. And then you have to consider the time period when things like that were only done or usually done in a very formal manner. So this is displayed in a very slow burn type of situation. In any event, as far as the mystery is concerned, it pushes into a dark world of secrets and things that involve this whole I don't say Chinese world, but aspects of translation of things of that nature that bring this Chinese man, Mr. Chang, front and center. But Kat is really good at trying to suss out what really happened. And I made a note in my review that the book is definitely intriguing and in some ways very sensitive, especially when it came to race and class during that time in history. And I thought that was done very, very well. It's a good book. It's a great part of the series, but it is an individual story, so if you don't have time to read the first 2, you won't have any trouble following along in this series. I will say that I definitely look forward to reading any more that come after this. And I want to thank Berkeley Books and NetGalley for this arc that I was able to review. My next book is Tough Luck Cowboy. I was looking over at my bookshelf because this is by A.J. Pine, and I do have a couple of those books, and I am going to have to reach forward and grab one in a moment. But Tough Luck Cowboy was a 2018 title, so I didn't have that arc. It was a good book. It's the second book in the Crossroads series, and I gave it 4 stars. And this is about a woman named Lily who takes on a catering job, and when she does that, she runs into someone named Luke, and running into Luke, she realizes that there's something between them, but he's acting as if he can't tolerate her, or always acted as if he couldn't tolerate her. And there's a good reason for that, because Luke was her ex-husband's best friend, and now her and Luke are kind of working together on something, and now they have to deal with each other. But Lily doesn't know why Luke treats her so badly. But what it is a smoke screen, and like I said, there is a very good reason for that. It's a very sweet story. Luke and Lily are perfect for one another, despite the fact that he was her husband's best friend formerly. Actually, he still is her ex-husband's best friend. That's what I meant to say. And it's a good story. And we'll see what happens with how it works out. And I really enjoyed it. I loved reading the series. And I am going to move my iPad back in order to grab a hold of the next one, because the next one that I read was actually a print arc. And that just ends the review for Tough Luck Cowboy. It was a library book in order to read the entire series. And then the next one is Hard Loving Cowboy. And as you see, this is a print arc. I read this book last year, Second Chance Cowboy. Then I read a novella, and then I read Tough Luck Cowboy, and then this one. And a review for Hard Loving Cowboy, which came out on March 26th. I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars, and now we see that it's a Walker story. Now, in the series, we learn about each brother. Okay, so in the previous story it was Luke, and this time it's Walker. Now, these are the Everett brothers, and with Walker was seemingly the most troubled of them all. So much so that he became an alcoholic due to the past that Walker and his brothers endured as children. They went through something, and Walker seemed to have come out of it worst of all. Well, now he has to deal with his alcoholism, and meanwhile, he meets a woman named Violet Chastain, who is newly employed by the family, and Violet is experiencing something difficult right now, very difficult, and so she asks Walker to act as if he is her boyfriend, or even fiance, even if it's just around her parents. She just needs him to act this way for a while. Well, this is a challenge to him because he's attracted to her, but because of he had been through rehabilitation, he just can't enter into a relationship right now. And she doesn't want one anyway, because she just got out of a relationship. But I gave this book 5 stars, and it was because, as I mentioned, Walker's story was very, very sensitive. I had just read the previous books in the series, and even the novella, which was about the sheriff named Chase. So as I read all the books in the series, I was really drawn into this family, the Everett family, and I liked the way Luke faced his past and his present, and he prepared for his future. I got this book from Forever. I really loved it, and unfortunately, though, if you like series, it is the last book in the Crossroads Rant series, and that's kind of sad because it was a great series and I really enjoyed it. And I'm just going to reiterate the titles in case you're interested. They're Second Chance Cowboy, Saved by the Cowboy, Tough Luck Cowboy, and this one here is Hard Loving Cowboy. And they can be read as standalone if that's what you like to do. Gotta move the iPad again. I didn't get this arc out. It's on my desk. It just wasn't handy. And I have another review, so I'm going to grab that one now too. Okay. I apologize. I'm not very good at editing, so I probably won't edit that out. I'm really learning how to edit, so I may edit it out. In any event, this was the next book. It's Joanne Prowse, We All Love the Beautiful Girls. Okay, now, let me tell you. Before I start, like I did before, I'm going to show you something. This long review. I find that sometimes when I don't really like a book, I tend to write longer reviews, and I've got to look at that. And I'm going to tell you how I started my written review. I said, well, I feel cheated. I feel cheated because it took me a long time to read the book, and then it only took me a minute to read the book because I read it in less than a day. So why would that make me feel cheated? Well, that's because since this was a print arc, it's full of these delicious quotes on the back of the book. And generally when I do reviews, when I'm reading a book for review, I don't read other reviews. In most cases I don't, because I want anything that I say or think to be original, and I try to reserve any other reviews until after my review is written or at least published. Well, because those quotes are right there on the back of the book, I read them, so I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a great book. Well, when I picked it up, I also read it along with my reviewer friend, and we were both really excited about to read it because these quotes were so effusive. And, well, why didn't I like the book? It's about a couple named Mia and Michael Slate, okay? Michael just lost his company due to being swindled by someone that was their best friend. Meanwhile, their 17-year-old son went to a party and he was seriously injured. So their whole family structure has been rocked. A loss of a business, almost the loss of their son's life, and now he's recovering from an injury. Now, prior to all of this happening, Michael and Mia, they led a very charmed life. They had exceptional jobs. They had been married 19 years. Their family life was happy. But with things changing overnight, it was overwhelming to the family. And it was a sense of drama that cost them their livelihood. And what happened in the story, the reason kind of that I had a hard time with it is, even though it dealt with the drama of them losing their livelihood and the family structure, it kind of took second place to Finn's loss and how Mia, the mother, tried to keep everything together. And Mia was doing this, but meanwhile, Michael, the father, completely lost his way. And I kind of felt like it was almost like a sob story all the way through for the father. And that kind of shifted the story for me. But like I said, I read it pretty much in one day and only a few sittings, so there was something to it, definitely. Now, when you read a book, you want to latch on to at least one character that you really can like. At least I do. In this story, we weren't afforded that opportunity. Finn, he was in his own world, 17 years old, with the loss that he experienced. Mia, the mother, trying to hold everything together. Michael, the father, that was falling apart. Well, none of them were likable, and I just kept hoping that at least one of them would be redeemed in the story, but I don't think it happened. So, I do want to read from my review, and I wrote this review maybe 2 weeks ago, and what I said then was, so imagine, you're on a train barreling downhill with no brakes on the wrong track. That's what this book was to me. In any event, I'll say that she's a good storyteller because she did keep me interested, and I felt her writing was cohesive, and I was initially drawn to the characters, especially Finn. And I will say that as a mother, I couldn't imagine dealing with what that child lost in the story. That was it. This came from Grand Central Publishing, and I do want to thank them for this arc that I was able to review. The next book I read was The Next to Die by Sophie Hannah. This was another not so favorite book. It came out February 29th, and it was the Spelling CID series, and I gave it 3.5 stars, so I liked it a little better than We All Love the Beautiful Girls. Now in this story, these detectives have a very difficult job on their hands because 4 people have been killed, and the only connection they can seem to find is that the individuals were pairs of friends. So it seems as if this killer is after pairs of best friends. Well, there's a woman, pretty much one of the, if not the main character in the story. Her name is Kim Tribbett, and she's a stand-up comedian, and she runs across a clue. She's at the hospital visiting her mother who is in treatment, and she sees the story on TV about the murders, and when she sees this on the television, they reveal a clue, and the clue alluded to a particular item, and it is an item very similar to that of something that she found when she was waiting on her mother. So she goes to the police thinking that she's the next person in line for murder. However, the murderer apparently or seemingly only goes after pairs of friends, and Kim may have been successful in her career as a comedian, but on a personal level, she really didn't have any friends, never mind a best friend. So the police didn't take her fears and her concern very seriously. It was a very exciting story, but it kind of got too long, and it had other things that I feel that really didn't connect to the case at hand. And I will say that the conclusion was a surprise. And, excuse me, I've got to let my cat in. He's been banging for about 10 minutes. Excuse me. Come on in. I'm sorry. I told my friend one day, his name is Toby, and Toby does not do closed doors. And I generally only close my door if I'm doing a video, and usually I try to make sure he's in the bedroom before I start, because if not, he's going to disturb me, and he did. So that's the end of The Next to Die. It's the 10th book in the series. I hadn't read any of the other books, but I probably will follow the series if there are future stories. I got this book thanks to William Morrow and Etta Weiss, by the way. The very next book I read is She's Mine by Claire S. Lewis, and this book came out on March the 5th, and I also gave this one 3.5 stars. So several 3 and 3.5 star books for this particular week. Now, Scarlet Rays is a nanny to 4-year-old Katie, and one day when they're on the beach, Katie simply disappears. Just before Katie disappeared, Scarlet felt really woozy and actually fell asleep. She maintains that she was drugged. Meanwhile, Katie's mother starts off being highly upset about the loss of her daughter, but then seems very calm, and that really bothers Scarlet, the nanny. So Scarlet sets out to try to figure out what happened to the little girl and where the little girl was. But about halfway into the story, I felt that there was a major shift that changed things, and then when that shift happened, the confusion that I started to feel during the beginning of the story started to peter out, and then the pieces began to fall together in place. Now, there was at times, especially during the first half of this book, that I kind of felt like it was going to be a no-go. It was actually going to be a do not finish title, but I'm glad that I stuck with it, and in so doing, I discovered that the pacing had picked up a little bit. Even though there were some strange things that happened in the story, it did wake me up and make me pay very sharp attention. And, you know, overall, I just wanted the little girl to be found safe and sound. That's what I wanted out of the story. Now, there's an unnamed character who is an apparently unreliable narrator in the story, and she's prominent in the latter part of the story, and that also made me pay a lot of attention. I got this book through Aria and NetGalley, and I'm glad that I got a chance to review it. Let's see. The next book I read was another print title, which is The Widows, and this is by Jess Montgomery. I got this book from Minotaur, and I believe they sent this to me. If I'm not mistaken, I was emailed and requested to review this book, and then gave my address, and I got the book. Now, this was a January 8th title, and unfortunately, I had it on my shelf for several months, but that's how my reading goes, it gets kind of behind. Now, this is the first book in a series called Kinship, and it takes place in a town called Kinship in Ohio in the year 1924. And it talks about a woman, or it tells of a woman named Lily Ross who wants to avenge for her husband's death. His name was Daniel, and he was a highly or widely respected sheriff. Now, there's a bit of realism in the story because this woman, Lily Ross, became a sheriff in 1924, and it was loosely surrounding the real life first woman sheriff in that town in Ohio. So the author did a lot of research, and that I did appreciate. Well, when this woman Lily is at her husband's funeral, a woman approaches her, and her name is Marvina, and she says that she has things that Lily can help her with because her daughter is missing. But more than that, she feels that Lily feels that there is a connection between this woman Marvina and her deceased husband. But yes, she decides to help this woman. They were both trying to work towards similar goals. Lily trying to figure out what happened to her husband, and Marvina trying to locate her daughter. Now, I'm going to keep going, but my iPad just shut off and I turned it back on, so hopefully I can continue this review. Now, this was a debut novel. I enjoyed it. There was a descriptive style that was used as this book was written. It did keep me turning the pages, and it's part of a new series, and I definitely look forward to the next story. I got this book from Minotaur Books. I'm not sure if Minotaur sent it or the author, but that's who I got the book from. The next book I read was A Girl Across the Street by Vicky Pattis. This was a March 8th title, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. And this tells of Isla and Beth, who are complete strangers, and they become friends due to a tragic incident. It was a hit-and-run accident, and the person hurt was a male jogger. And during CPR, the man died, and due to this trauma, these two women became friends. Now, they met by accident, but this was rather fortuitous for Beth because she really wanted to get to know Isla. There were things that she wanted from Isla. Of course, it was a big secret, but this afforded her a good opportunity. Now, they both led dark lives. It was a very touching and sensitive story in a lot of ways, and especially when there's something had to change. It had to. And both men in their lives and their relationships were toxic, so I could only hope the best for both of the women. It was a thrilling story. It was charged with suspense and had a fantastic conclusion. And the next book by the author, did I say Vicky Pattis? Let me go back. Yes, the next book by Vicky Pattis I definitely want to read. I got this book from Bookerture and NetGalley, by the way. Okay, Knowing You by Samantha Tong. This came out on March 14th, and it was another 3.5 star book for me. And this was about a woman named Violet who had a broken heart. She was dating a man named Lenny who worked with her in a world of publishing, and that situation or relationship has fallen apart. She has a new flatmate now, Bella, who gives her a lot of advice, and it helps her to change her life. While she's in the process of changing her life, she did have two friends who really warned her about the changes she was taking place and how trusting she was toward this woman named Bella. Meanwhile, the story goes back and forth to her childhood and how she had a friend, and it was a friend that her mother grossly disliked and tried to dissuade her against having. Now, Violet is involved in publishing, as is Lenny, so there were a lot of things in there that are kind of familiar to me as a reviewer. And she also runs a book club, so that part of the story was very interesting when it came to the book talk. But the switch between past and present, as intriguing as it was, and it did give a great perspective into Violet's personality, all I could hope for is that she could wake up and she could see the path that she was heading on. Okay, I asked myself a question in this review. Is there a message in this book for us to take away? By all means, love yourself for who you are. Do not try and fit in the mold that others set before you. the author did a good job in setting that message up for us to follow. I got this book from Canelo and NetGalley, and I really am glad that I read it. Okay, the next book I read was Too Close to Breathe, and this was by Olivia Cannon. And I read this book because I got the second book for review, which was The Killer in Me, which I will do in my next video. And so I wanted to read the first book before I read the other title for review. So I got this one from my library. This takes place in Dublin, and Frankie Sheehan is a detective chief superintendent, and she's also a profiler. So she's on the case of the apparent suicide of a microbiologist named Elena Costello. When she starts investigating, right away she realizes that it wasn't a murder. It was not a suicide. It was definitely a murder, and there's a very strong clue. And this clue alluded to a club called the Black Widow online, and this club is involved in dangerous practices. So Frankie and her team, they go undercover to try to figure out whoever's responsible and if this person could even be part of this website. Now, before Frankie got that case, she was away from work because of being hurt on a case, and that involved the murder of a woman named Tracy Ward. And I bring that up now because what happened then came full circle with the case that Frankie is on now. Now, one of the things that I kind of liked about the story is how weird the circumstances were presented. There were a lot of twists and turns in the so with police procedurals and psychological thrillers and mysteries and so forth, we expect twists and turns. But in Too Close to Breathe, they really were done very well, and they did keep me very interested. I liked Frankie's style. I look forward to reading more about her. As a matter of fact, I already did when I read The Killer in Me. And if there's more in the series, I will read it. And this also was a debut book as well. And it might have been my third or fourth debut book this week. Okay, I am almost done. My very next book that I reviewed was St. Patrick's Day Murder by Leslie Meyer. This is the 14th book in the Lucy Stone mystery series, and it came out in 2008. Myself and a couple of my friends are reading the series, and I have read all the books prior to now, and I'm set to, even before I wrote this review, I read the 15th book, and I'm set to read the 16th book. Now, here we see Lucy is at it again. We know of Lucy that she's a wife, a mother of four, one child is in a relationship, another child is married, and she has two girls still living at home. She's also a newspaper reporter, and she's an amateur sleuth. Now, when it comes to this murder that takes place, quite naturally, she's going to investigate it. So she does her regular thing. She parents, she's a wife, she attends town's meeting, and she is writing articles. She's even about to become a first-time grandmother, and she just joined a chorus. In this chorus is where somebody in this chorus is the person that ends up dying. It was a really good story. It was rather gruesome, a little bit more so than Cozy Mysteries actually lay out. But I was able to read it in just one sitting, and as I mentioned, I already read the next book in the series. The last book I reviewed for this particular video is My Sister is Missing by Julia Barrett, and this came out on March the 19th, and it was another 3.5-star book. So I think I may have had 1 5-star review and 2 4-star reviews, of 3 and mostly 3.5. So it wasn't the best reading week that I've had. In any event, okay, Stephanie Henderson. For reasons that no one could understand, she disappeared with her baby girl. She was happy. She seemed happy. Her husband now is beside himself. On the one hand, he swears that he knows nothing about it, but then as time goes on, he does look a little bit more suspicious. Meanwhile, her sister is determined, and her sister's name is Jess, to figure out where Stephanie is and if her and the baby are okay. This was a true thriller. I sped right through it. Nothing was ever as it seemed. I was very invested in the welfare and safety of Stephanie and the baby. Jess was very impressive, and she never gave up. There were a few twists that caught me off guard, and this is when it came to dealing with something that one of the characters was going through. Although it was delivered in one point of view, it really touched on an area that I was reluctant to say it in the written review, and I'm reluctant to say it in the audio, this review. But let's just say that it dealt with kind of a sensitive aspect, and when it did, it took a part of the mystery away, and that's why I only gave it 3.5 stars. Nonetheless, I'm going to read more by Julia Barrett because it is a debut novel. I want to see what else she has to offer, and I got this book from Red Door Publishing and NetGalley as well. That's it. That's 12 books, and I hope that I can edit these videos together since the iPad decided to shut off. And I hope you enjoy the video, and I hope that you'll check out at least one of these books and let me know what you think. All right, thank you. Bye.